Allahu ya Allahu ya Allahu.
We sent messengers as bringers of good tidings and warners, so that mankind will have no argument against Allah after the messengers. And ever is Allah exalted in might and wise.
Well, he was taking the side which goes toward Syria. In Syria, or Bled Hashem, is the area where he went. People of Midian, he went there. You remember we talked about them before, and that's where he went. These were, I think, the people of Shuaib, if you remember those guys. Well, anyhow, when he went back that way, he realized something. I didn't bring anything with me. I didn't even bring a change of clothes. I didn't even bring any other shoes. All he had was some little weak-looking sandals that you wear around the palace, and they fell apart real fast. And he's walking on the hot sand, burning up his feet, and he didn't live like that before. He wasn't a desert person, and he had no food, and he had no drink, and he was walking. He said, I can't do this. And then all of a sudden, he looked in the back behind him. Oh, my God, look, look, look. There's some people coming. A whole bunch of people looks like coming over there. I better hide. So he hid in the day, and then at night, he would travel. Of course, it was a lot cooler at night. That's one thing. Easier to walk on the sand for him because the sand was cooler. But you know what the problem is? At night, can't see anything, can you? You might step on something like a scorpion or a snake or a rock. You could hurt yourself. So at night he would travel, in the day he would hide himself. And this went on for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5, until the 8th day. And trust me, he was exhausted. He had just gone so far. And how much water did he have? He didn't find a root. Now, sometimes in the desert, you can find roots of something. Pull the root out of the ground and kind of rub it against a rock or something, get it to break open. You can get some kind of liquid or eat the root or get some value out of it. Probably didn't taste very good, but at least you'd have something. He couldn't even find that. Well, when he finally came up out of the desert, on the other side of the desert, he saw a tree. He said, a tree, at last. And he got up to the tree and just collapsed by the tree. And he was watching, and there was a well down at the bottom of this valley there, and he saw this well, and he saw these guys coming up with their sheep, and they're getting water there, and he's going, that's a good idea. And these guys were moving this big, huge rock off the top of the well, and then he saw, looks like some other sheep, they never did go up and get their water. So these guys would come, they would leave, some guys would come, and they would leave, different groups of sheep. They would line them up because you can't mix them together, you get them all confused, you know. So they were trying to keep the sheep separate, going in, going out. But this one little group of sheep never did go up and get any water. So he started moving down there closer, and guess what? It was 2 girls taking care of those sheep. Now, everybody knows men take care of sheep out in the desert because it's very tough, it's very dangerous, and you have to be very strong. And how are you going to take care of sheep? And it's just 2 little girls, you know. So he asked them, how come you don't get some water? And they're like shy. They're like, oh, didn't look right up at him. They said, well, you know, these men are, you know, they're coming first. They were too shy to go up there. And then what happened when the men would leave, the men would put the rock back on top of the well. Now, this rock was big. Would you like to know how big the rock was? It was so big, it took 10 men all around it to pick it up and move it. And everybody's gone now. And Moses looked at that rock. Remember I told you Moses is strong. Do you recall I said that? Yes. He walked over to that rock. And he got under it. And he lifted it. And he put it to his side. Now. And he brought the sheep and watered the sheep. 10 men to move this rock. Moses did it by himself. What do you think of that? Pretty strong, huh? It gets better. Well, he put the rock back, and the girls left with the sheep. He went back up, sat under the tree, and he went, I forgot to get a drink. He forgot. See how Shaitan can make you forget. You get so excited about other things. But you see how he really liked to help people? He was always trying to help people, just like helping those girls. Well, it wasn't very long, and one of the girls came back. A couple days, whatever, she came back, and she was looking for him. She said, my father wants to talk to you. He said, what? What's going on? She said, well, you see, it's like this, sir. Me and my sister were the only two who can take care of the sheep. As we told you, you know, that we're the only ones. My father's very old, and he can't take care of the sheep. He can't go out. And now he wants to thank you. He's inviting you to come. By the way, do you know how to say invite in Arabic? Da'wah. Da'wah. Can you say da'wah? Da'wah. Yeah. It means to invite. So, and it's always been the tradition all throughout the whole land that if anybody gives you an invitation like that, you must accept it. Even in today, you find this in the Middle East. If anybody gives an invitation, you should accept it. In fact, that's part of being a good Muslim, is to give an invitation to come to your place and also to accept the invitation. But anyhow, so he accepted it, and he went. And along the way, though, he's following her. You know what he did? He told her, do you mind to go behind me? She's like, why? He said, well, just because. So, okay, so she went behind him, but she knew why. Then when they got there, and he met the father was very happy, slaughtered the sheep, and they had food, and they enjoyed. He took care of Moses. He was very nice to him. And then the girl came, and she said to her father, you know what? I think this is a good idea for me to marry this guy. He said, you know, I'm thinking the same thing. It's a good idea for you to marry this guy, but we don't know about him. He's telling us some story about he was a prince in Egypt. He killed somebody, and they're looking for him, and I don't know. I mean, you know, he seems nice, but he killed somebody, and they are looking for him. But again, though, he's very nice. How do I know that he'd be the right one for my daughter? She said, well, let me tell you what. When we were traveling all the way coming over here, he was too shy to even look at me. So he asked if I would walk behind him so he wouldn't be looking at me while we were traveling. He said, he did that? Yeah, that's the guy for me. And he got them married. But here's the deal. He said, would you like to get married to my daughter? And on a condition, though, you work for me for 8 years taking care of the animals. Then you're free to go. Or, if you stay on 2 more years, make it 10 as a favor to me, and that's also cool. Moses said, this is a very good deal. After all, A, I don't have any place to go. B, I don't have any job. C, I don't have any money. Oh, yeah, and I don't even have a wife. This is an excellent idea. So he got married, and he was very happy. And for the 8 years, he just toiled away, working, taking care of the sheep, doing so many things. And then, as a favor, he stayed the other 2 years, too. But guess what he did while he was there with the sheep? He used to go out into the desert. He would go out, and he would look, and he would observe, and he would think, and he would watch, and he would see things, and really contemplate. You know what contemplate means? It's like when you think about a thing, and you look at it, and you think all about it. So he would notice at night the stars, and he would think how these stars are different places every night. And in the daytime, he would look at the things that come up out of the ground. How does this come up out of the ground? What makes it come up? And how does the water come down and take what looks like it's dead, but you put water, a few days, something's growing up out of it. And some things even break the ground and break even rocks. Some stuff can break a rock growing up through it, just like that. And he thought about it and thought about it. In fact, he realized there must be a law. He knew that. He just knew it. There is a law. And the law would inspire him with thinking. He became very spiritual at that time. Developed his mental process real nice because it's so quiet out there. When you're quiet, really quiet, and there's nothing around to bother you, and you can think, and the air is fresh and clean, and you're relaxing, and you're looking at the creation of Allah, he came to know that there really is the Rabbil Alameen. Now that means the Lord of the worlds. Rabb, Lord, Alameen, the worlds. At the 10th year All of a sudden, Allah put something in his heart real strong. And he felt so attracted to go back. I have to go back. I have to go back. We don't know for sure if he was missing his mother or his brother or his sister or all of his family. Or maybe he was missing the lady that raised him up, the queen. Maybe he just wanted to go back and see the place he grew up in, but for whatever reason, he had to go back and he knew it. So he told his wife, you know what? We got to go. Very next day, he just told her, we got to go. She said, huh? He said, now. She said, what do you mean now? Right now, we're going. Okay, where are we going? I'm going to go back to my land where I came from. Going back to Egypt. She's like, huh? Excuse me, do you remember they're looking for you? Remember? Yeah, but I have to go back. You killed somebody, you said. Yeah. You said they're going to kill you. Remember? He said, doesn't matter, I'm going to go. Okay. She could think of 1,000 dangers in the trip back, but she was a good wife. She said, you want to go? I'm with you, let's go. So he packed up and he took her, he took all the sheep, his family, everybody that he had. By the way, you know, of course they had family, you know. So they went back. She could think of 1,000 dangers in the trip back, but she was a good wife. She said, you want to go? I'm with you, let's go. So he packed up and he took her, he took all the sheep, his family, everybody that he had. By the way, you know, of course they had family, you know. So they went back. And on the way back, he was crossing the desert, and Moses is pretty smart. In fact, he's brilliant. But he still did what all of us do. You know what happened? He got lost. He got lost big time. And he was by this mountain in the desert, and he was thinking, man, how did I get lost? Let me go over here. I'm going to go over there. And all of a sudden, he saw fire. He's looking at that fire. And it was a strange kind of fire because it didn't just like burn up. It just kept, you know, burning real even. It wasn't consuming itself. It just kept being there, being there. I said, okay, you guys stay here. I'm going to go check out this fire and see if I can bring back something, because it could be some people there, or I could get some fire from it, something, you know. So he got over there closer and closer, and the voice spoke to him and told him, Moses, this is sacred ground. Take off your shoes. This is in the Quran. It told him, take off your shoes. Took off his shoes. He's talking to me. He said, this is Allah. And Allah spoke to him directly. And Allah tells us in the Quran that some of the prophets, they came with a message, and some of them, they had revelation. And one, we know, Allah spoke to him directly. And who is the one?
Musa alayhi salam.
Musa alayhi salam. Allah was telling him many things. Well, this is kind of a big deal for Moses. And Allah was telling him, La ilaha illallah. There's none to worship except Allah. So all these false worship, all these gods that these people have, especially Pharaoh. Because Pharaoh was telling people what? To worship him. He said he was a god, right? And Allah's telling him now, you go back to Egypt. When you go back into Egypt, you go to Pharaoh and you tell him, no more false worship. Nobody's going to worship you anymore. They're only going to worship me, Allah, the Rabbil Alameen. Moses thought about that, and he's going to, wait a minute, hold on a second. You know, this is a lot. It's hitting him fast, you know, and it's going through his brain. Oh, this is something amazing. Then he realized that I need strength to do this, and I need courage to do this, and I need, wait a minute. He had another problem too. I forgot to tell you about this. Moses had a speech impediment. That means he couldn't talk plain. Like you talk a tongue and you don't talk real plain, or maybe something, or not. Because when Moses prayed to Allah, he said, give me the strength, and that's one of the things he asked for, and give me the ability to argue with this guy, because he knew he was going to have to argue with him. He said, and untie the knot in my tongue. So evidently, when he's got to be under pressure to speak, or something, maybe he stuttered, maybe we don't know. But just to give you the idea, it was tough. And then he added something that he said, oh yeah, and include my brother too, Harun. I want him to help me for backup. Now, after 10 years, can you imagine that? That he's on his way back, crossing the desert, gets stuck out there, lost, see a fire, go, and the fire is talking, not the fire, but Allah is, but you see how that goes, and he's like, ooh, man, a lot of stuff's happening here. Well, he came back. When he got back in Egypt, they remembered him, of course. Nobody forgot anything. Now, I'm sure he would like to go see his mom, he'd like to go see his sister, and go see his brother. But one of the things for sure, he went to see Pharaoh. And in front of Pharaoh, the king, the hot shot, the big shot, right? He went to him and he started to tell him what's going on. That, you need to let the people go. He said, what'd you say? Excuse me, I'm sorry, what did you say? He said, no, these people here you're treating as slaves. These are the children of Israel. Let them go with me. Pharaoh said, okay, these are my slaves, and not only do they work for me, they worship me because I'm their God. He said, oh, you're not. Because nobody ever dared to say that before, even way before. All these kings, when they came, they would tell people, worship me, and people would just do it. Nobody argued with them. So here is this man who was actually raised there telling them that. He said, you're telling me that you're going to take them, and you're telling me they don't need to worship me? He said, no, they're not your slaves. They're slaves of Allah. We're all servants of Allah, even you. Now, this Pharaoh was pretty sharp. He wasn't stupid. And he had a lot of people around him. It was a pretty big court, He said, excuse me, what's your name? He said, Moses. He knew it was Moses, but he was getting ready to set him up. He said, are you the Moses that was in the basket that came floating down the river? I said, yeah. Are you the same Moses that we brought into this palace and took care of you? Yes. You the same Moses that got your food here, you got your drink here, you got your clothing here, you got your shelter here, you got your money here? Yeah. You the same Moses that killed an Egyptian citizen and ran away 10 years ago? Well, yeah. Oh, I see. And, excuse me, doesn't that mean, according to the teaching you just told us, whoever kills a person, this is disbelief, not a believer? Isn't that right? You kill somebody, you're not a believer, is that right? Well, so that means you're not even a believer, and you're telling me about belief and Allah and... All right, yeah, thank you very much. Musa alayhi salam was strong, though, in his will. And Allah really gave him the ability. And he told him, listen, what I did was an accident. I never intended to kill this man. And even though Allah has since then made me as a prophet, and I'm a prophet to you and to all the people, telling you, there's only one God, worship him, and you're not God. Pharaoh's like, okay. Excuse me, Mr. Moses, do you have any proof? While Musa alayhi salam was out in the desert, when he got lost, there's something that Allah showed him. Yes, when he was in the desert, what happened was this. Allah said, Moses, what's in your right hand? He said, my stick. What do you use it for? He said, well, I use it to walk with when I'm going along, and I use it to beat down the trees and get stuff down for the animals to eat, and many other things. Allah said, Moses, throw your stick on the ground. Moses threw it on the ground. And it became a huge serpent, a big snake. Oh, what's this? Allah said, stretch out your hand and grab it, and it'll turn back into a stick. Stretch out your hand and grab it. It will turn back. It'll be all right. Go ahead. Put his hand down. As soon as he touched it, it became a stick again. Wow. Moses, take your right hand and put it inside of your cloak. Now pull it out. And he did. And it was shining like light. And he looked at it. Look, it's so white. What happened? Now put it back in. Put it back in. Pull it out. And there it is. Normal again. Free of any kind of disease or anything. It was just as nice as it could be. So when Pharaoh was asking Moses, Moses alayhi salam, he was asking him for any proof you have. He didn't think he was going to have any proof, did he? Look what Moses did. Took the stick, threw it down. Snake. Big snake. What do you call this? Quivering?
Crawling.
Crawling? What?
On it.
Yeah. Like this way. Going all over the place. Big. Quivering. Then when he stuck his hand down and he grabbed it, turned back into a stick. The king's like, okay, did anybody else see that? You saw that, huh? Okay, wow. And then Musa put his hand inside of his coat and he pulled it out. It was shining white. It was like, what's this? And then he put it back and he pulled it out again and it was back to normal. Pharaoh was like telling his guys, come here. What is this? What is this? Come on, guys. What's up with this? They said, it's just magic. It's just magic. We know guys that do the same thing. You do? Yeah, don't worry about it. He's just a magician. Well, that's pretty scary. Don't worry about it. We got this guy under control. Okay. So, Moses, you like to try that with some competition? And Moses said, sure. There's a day of festival coming up. So what I like to do, Moses tell him, I like you to get everybody on that day. Because on the day of the festival, all the people of all the lands are going to be there. So bring all the people together on that day, and we'll have a competition. Pharaoh said, good enough for me. So in the meantime, they started getting ready. They started letting everybody know there's going to be something really big going on. Now, throughout the land, the people had heard this story about one of the servants, one of the slaves, that had been raised by Pharaoh and then killed an Egyptian and escaped. They knew the story. It was pretty famous. And they were saying, hey, that's the same guy. He's back. And not only that, he's a magician. And not only that, he's got this magic snake that turns into a stick, and he's got some weird stuff he's doing with his hands and all this kind of stuff. And there's going to be a lot of other magicians. There's going to be a big competition. And it was like, fantastic. Everybody's going to go. Everybody's going to see it. This is going to be the event of all events.